How do we cultivate a learning ecosystem? By design. We form it. This is what we're doing. This is why I'm here in Israel, is to help Israel and to help communities to understand the nature of an ecosystem. So it isn't that you're going to change all that much. It's just you're going to connect to each other and talk to each other, make decisions together, learn together, and lessons learned together. By design process, which is that engineering design process, by design studios, getting everybody together and saying, how do we do this? Not just getting the school people together and saying, how do we do this? Not just getting families, everybody in the same room. Then saying, what becomes a Valley of the Springs top STEM education? Let's do it together and figure it out together. In America, we have done 56 of these, soon to be 70, and within 3 years, 100. Never expected this. We thought we'd do 4. The 4 cities or communities would come. But everybody has the same problem. Loads of good STEM, no connections. And then community to community. Does Beersheba talk to Valley of the Springs? And we know things are going there in STEM. Do you learn from that? Do they learn from you? And the answer is not regularly, if at all. But that should be different in a single country. Technical assistance, helping communities to learn, helping communities that do it well, help other communities. You have so many nice little communities throughout Israel that could be doing beautiful STEM. They don't have to do it on their own. The other thing is, and you can't see that piece over there, you have to connect to workforce. In Israel, in America, in Australia, in the UK, and on, it has been a single path to a single profession, the yellow brick road, to one thing. So you learn it, you get into it, and that's it. So you become a physicist, and you're going to be a physicist. That's not going to work anymore. It's multiple ranks. It's the highway to life. Multiple jobs, as I said, but also multiple education. So education here in Valley of the Springs needs to have entry points for new people who come here. For people who don't do their job anymore because that job isn't there anymore. And for what the future jobs are. And how do you get on it? How do you get a credential? How do you learn together and end up with workforce? So what does Israel look like now? What should it look like in years to come? Isn't that the real question? That's why we're all together. So right now, I don't know if you've seen this diagram. This is the map of the STEM pipeline in Israel. If you look and you'll see the different educations, you have to take a closer look at this, I'm sure. But you'll see that it's a declining number of children who choose STEM in Israel. You have high interest, you have student comfort levels, very, very high early. Children who are little bitty will tell you they're going to be a scientist. Oh, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to design this. I'm going to do that innovation. I'm ready. And over the years in Israel, that gets smaller and smaller and leaky pipeline. It's a leaky pipeline. So at the end, your workforce is tiny. Your jobs are many. And the problem is, you have a security problem. So you can't just get all those jobs filled by outside people. So now what? So what happens is, and you don't fill them, you don't get the business, and everything becomes offshore. Everything the companies start to build plants outside of Israel, not in Israel, in order to get the economic. This is so important to you, because even though we're all educators and it's all about our children, this is about their lives. This is about their families. Performance data on PISA. You know, you're not as bad as we are, but close. nobody to aspire to. We're at the bottom of the barrel on PISA. It's just an awful situation. But you are up here, you're not up here anymore. Why? Why? Because your children have lost interest. It's not that they're good at it, it's they don't want it. They don't want to go into STEM. So they aren't there with you in the math, only we talked about tiers, the fifth tier. So we can push all we want, but there has to be another reason for them to be in it. And we have to be very cautious about their own interests. We also know that when you talk to PISA, to OECD, and you say, what's the most important thing happening in the world in STEM? They're going to tell you the ecosystem is. That it takes all of us to educate in STEM, not just the school folk. So if you take a look just at the education system, and I can leave you with this, you'll see that you're just below average. It's not awful, but it's not good. And below average in general. And there's a large, and you have the periphery children, your children. And your children on the OECD, on PISA, and on the TIMS are way down. They're not competitive, which makes it so that your region is not competitive. Now, we just said earlier, why are we testing? And what do we care about tests? And I'm giving you an indicator here that's a test. Right, there's one difference, not TIMS, but PISA. PISA is a performance-based evaluation. It's a little bit more descriptive of the kid's ability to do the work. However, take this for what it is. What we know in our heart of hearts, working with our children daily, is that we could have a better system for them. Not that they could do better. It's not their issue. It's our issue. We have to be very clear about that. Your children are wonderful. Our children are wonderful. Children are wonderful. The issue is the system. And that's the shift that we're trying to make. So, STEM for all learners for a lifetime should have in and out of school STEM, interface to work, internships, apprenticeships, designing, everything from families have to be involved, the public has to be involved. A system, you have to talk about systems. Children and we need to be talking about a system. And we have to iterate. You know, we get so used to things in school and we don't want to change. And you know, in school, if you wait it out long enough, that change will disappear anyway. And we'll go on to the next change, right? You know, I was 35 years in the classroom, I know, right? No. It's not somebody doing it for us. You know, we love Noga and everybody else in the room. We have to do it for ourselves. Because this is why we got into our teaching. This is why we're doing STEM, is because of this. For a lifetime for all of our children. I think it's wonderful. I think we can't do STEM enough. It's always at least STEM. Everybody asks me, but what about writing? What about journalism? What about language? And the answer is, of course. It's at least STEM, not only STEM, right? So, story. We put in one of our schools in Cleveland, we put in a Fab Lab. First one in a school in America was in Cleveland. And it was a big deal. The governor was there and everybody was there for this. And we stood around, and after everybody left, a teacher walked up, and she had been watching one of the new teachers in the school. And she waited for everybody to leave, but I was there. And had been watching the whole thing and been part of it. She went up and she had learned to work the big CNC, the big shop bot. And she was a Mandarin Chinese teacher. And she said to me, I said, do you know how to work this? She said, yeah. I've been coming every night and learning it. And I said, so why? You're Mandarin Chinese? She said, no more anything else. We do projects in the Fab Lab in Mandarin. And those children did immersion Mandarin. I mean, they couldn't speak English. They weren't allowed to speak English. They learned Mandarin because they had the motivation of the family in order to do this. And she's still doing that. She said it was the biggest thing that ever changed her life. But that's transdisciplinary. That's the ability to do at least STEM, but also the importance of other disciplines. Thank you so much. Questions? It's a lot to think about.
I'll start.
Sure.
You spoke about virtual reality,
Yes.
especially in the Valley of Springs. The connection between people is very important.
Right.
How do you see it happening?
With virtual reality?
Yes.
I think that we're not sure about virtual reality in schools and whether or not this is going to be something that's going to be of benefit. I think the companies, this is something we can do in Cleveland actually when they come. Some of the companies have been testing this out to see whether their own training programs using virtual reality have been advancing and doing some research on that. There's not a lot of research on the education side yet. And remember, it's not that we think we know anymore about how to teach. We have to know. So you look for evidence. So it's the jury is out on that. It's a good question yet.
But can I add one more thing about that?
Sure.
So part of the whole new way of looking at education is not that, how to call it? זה לא ש... I'll speak in English.
Good, sir.
It's not that everybody is sitting with their
Right.
own desk and
Right.
do their test and
Right.
give the test to the teacher. Is that everybody, even a test, can do it together. The whole idea
Right.
of collaboration is the number one most important thing that students
Teaming.
need to do it, and that's the connection that you're talking about. Kids would not be able to work with each other if they don't have really good relationship with each other. So the idea of value-based education and teaching and learning and creating a community within each classroom is as important as anything else.
Right.
And that connection is very, very important to the whole idea of STEM project.
Right. So, but the difference in AI,
That's a
the
different
it's a
level.
little different
Yeah.
level on that. And there's stories out of industry now. To your point, so important. A CEO of Siemens was asked, "What do you look for in children you're hiring across the world?" And he said, "I look for their ability to work in teams, for their work for critical thinking, for them to want to solve problems, to be desired to solve problems." So we asked him, "So why do you fire someone? When you're firing them, when you're saying, no, it didn't work." He said, "I fire them because they cannot team." It is the single most important thing, so thank you. Very important. Collaboration. And so, we always talk about group grading. You know how we always say, how do we know if a kid's working in a group? How do we know who's doing the work? And how do we grade them? There is beautiful software now. There are beautiful programs throughout the world that help us to do that. If you don't have that, that's something to learn. Because that supports what you're talking about. Other questions? Sure.
אני אשאל בעברית ברשותכם. אני רוצה לשאול, נאמר שבעוד 2-3 כולנו עושים רק סטם ולומדים רק עם פרויקטים. מה עושים עם הדרך של המדינה, עם בחינות בגרות בסוף, ואני מניחה שגם אצלכם זאת הייתה שאלה.
It is a problem for us. Okay, but there's something interesting. It is only a problem if the universities make it a problem. Because in the end, the consumer of our children, who has the power in our systems, are our universities. In America, our universities have finally said, yeah, take the SAT. Yeah, take the ACT. third and fourth down now. Number one, did you show leadership and follow through on the leadership? I care about something, I've learned it, I'm leading. Number two, your classes and your grades and what your school and your teachers have to say. Usually what we said about children in universities counted almost nothing. That's not true anymore. It's way up. And the idea is, did a child show initiative? Did they show they wanted to do that? So the more that they do that, the universities want that, and not the single test of the A's and O's, and in Egypt the Thanawi Amma, and in UK A's, O's, G's, and everything else, the more we're going to go to performance-based measured assessment. And that becomes exhibition. You know, it looks like posters and kids defending their thinking. It looks like whether or not that boat sunk when it was supposed to go across the pool. You know, why did it sink versus going across? And the idea of learning from failure. We're there in America. We're there because the children going into the universities in STEM are remediated 72% in freshman year. And finally the university said, we're doing this all wrong. So it's changing. So it's a very good question. And Israel will have to, the ministry is going to, we have to keep talking to ministries. We have to keep thinking, helping them to think through.